Hi guys, it's Em here. Now, listen, I was looking into some of Greg Hallett's old videos just now, and I had to make a short video. I mean, I've been working hard on the documentary. Guys, if you haven't seen the trailer for that, please check in the links below. But basically, what I was looking into was some of his old videos with Jim Fetzer. Now, I'd heard Greg say before that he'd had 18 assassination attempts on his life. 18, right? And when you listen to some of the stories about them, they all seem a bit fishy. Now, he has claimed so many times before about people stealing his car, and he talks all the time, seems to involve cars and drug trafficking.
And then my brother, who was a drug dealer, you know, getting trained by the government as a drug dealer from the age of 10, what he'd do is I'd be an architect in town, and he would come in from Australia, and he would borrow my car and drive around, and he would sell drugs to teenagers and then hand the car back to me in the morning, or just basically put the keys back where they were and not tell me. And then all these women would go, "Oh, we're not using you as an architect because you're a drug dealer." And I'm going, "I'm not a drug dealer."
Yeah.
But he was using my car, right, to sell drugs, which meant that I couldn't get any work in that town.
I even spoke to his sisters about it, and they told me some funny stories. One of them about a killer pie.
Because I'm getting all these death threats, you know, like anthrax on a steering wheel, which turned out to be
He'd eaten a pie.
he'd eaten a pie. It was pastry dust on the steering wheel. It got a bit mouldy while he was away.
But he'd been to one of the Pacific Islands, and he was giving a talk there about our then Prime Minister Helen Clark, and he was dissing her. So he reckoned that's why they did this this attempt on his life. And he got into his car when he got back to New Zealand, into the car, and the steering wheel was sticky. When he was further down the road, he started to feel ill, and at the point where he started to feel ill was at the point where he said another couple were murdered, had a fatal car crash, when they'd obviously been whistleblowers for something, according to Greg. So he reckoned that because it was the same place, this was an attempt on his life, but he did admit he had eaten a pie before he went to the airport. So, you know, you've got, imagine a meat pie that's been sitting in your steering wheel in the sun for a week, you know, just the juices of it.
Yeah, it'd be grim.
And that's possibly what made him feel sick, but he reckoned then that was the 7th attempt on his life, and I'm not quite sure.
Oh, somebody, I
how
think
many
Prince
there have
Philip
been.
looked at him once on a step. That was another attempt on his life.
Yeah, I mean, these attempts coming thick and fast. I swear I heard someone say that he'd claimed there were 18 attempts on his life now.
Oh, yeah, well, that's because, you know, it's all symbolism. Somebody might have written something down in a film. That's an attempt.
Well, Maggie throwing apples at him, that was probably one of them.
Oh, that was probably the first one.
So that'd be one. So pie would have been the second attempt, pie trying to kill him, someone looking at him, third attempt. I mean, that's how they're all wrapped up.
Getting a flat tire in the dark.
Yeah.
That would be another attempt. And then
so he's not getting, you know, drive-by shootings and things like that happening to him all the time.
No, nothing that exciting.
Pie, you know,
It's
pie
a pie.
coming.
An old pie. An old pie crust. It's the old pie crust story.
Now, I'm wanting to watch this video with you, see what you guys think, and I'll watch it with you. So here's an excerpt from that video in 2015 with Jim Fetzer. It's called Greg Hallett Report number 8. Let's have a look.
Prince Philip's a con man, pedophile, Nazi, heroin trafficker, mass murderer, contract killer, and he even stole my car in London in 2012. Prince Philip stole my car.
I'm sure.
Prince Philip stole your car.
Prince Philip stole my car, Mercedes Vito van. He stole it. He absolutely stole it.
I'm sure.
Why in God's name did he do that, Greg? He could afford a zillion of them on his own.
Thank you,
He
Jim.
wanted yours.
No, he didn't want me to have. Well, it's called depleting the resources of the person that's exposing the story. London cost me a lot. London was a very expensive fraud in motion. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't.
His face.
You have no concern the royals coming after you. I mean, you survived multiple assassination attempts.
He tried to murder me in the same year in England. And I ended up in the Y hospital in the borderland between England and Wales. I was in there for 2 days on morphine. On the 5th and 6th of June 2012. But the interesting thing is that the assassin came to the hospital and rang up to get the final order for the execution by Prince Philip. And Prince Philip was in hospital and unavailable on the same 2 days.
This is a man that's laughing at you, not with you, at this story.
Well, you know, it's like Prince Philip's controllers are aware, perhaps, of who I am and what I'm doing, and that it's true and correct, and they saved me on that basis.
Extraordinary. Just extraordinary.
Extraordinary.
You've had any ramifications from your book about blackmail in New Zealand, the guide and all that? I mean, has anything developed there?
Yeah, actually I have. Prince Philip's agent in New Zealand, who's the marquee boss in New Zealand, called Peter Williams QC, he did everything he could to suppress New Zealand, a blackmailer's guide, partially because it exposed him as a heroin trafficker, a homosexual whose daughter, Kate Williams,
heroin trafficker,
or has been a methamphetamine user.
More drugs.
So what
happened was you put some stuff in his book, made some major accusations, and you went to court and you ended up bankrupt because of the damages that were put against you. But this is just ridiculous.
Physically attacked it. About 7 police officers involved in attacking my car outside the High Court in broad daylight.
What?
When I had won the right to appeal the case, because
how does
I was never
that many police officers go and attack?
You mean they took like hammers to the vehicle just to smash it up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what happens, Prince Philip's agent, like it's all about depleting the resources and slowing things down, right? So
yeah,
Peter Aldrich Williams QC was he started off as a bank robber in 1954, 58, and then he moved into heroin trafficking with the Queen Mother, who's actually
of course,
Elizabeth's mother, who's the maid. And that heroin trafficking went on from at least the early 1960s, according to Army intelligence, and carried on right through to 1980. And I was actually the target of that heroin because Queen Victoria's psychic said that the person that wrote this up would come from Lemuria.
How do you become the target of that heroin? Are they chasing you around with needles? What the?
And especially in Lemuria, supplying heroin to the places that the person predicted to write this could be. So Lemuria included New Zealand, and I think that one of the psychics predicted that I would come from the opposite side of the world, north, which is, you know, confusing little conundrum, the opposite side of the world, north. So I lived in North Auckland, and then North Shore, and then North Coast, and then North Grove Ave, and then Norton Road, which means Northtown Road. So this is the opposite side of the world, north. And Prince Philip's agent, Peter Williams, targeted the heroin to all these areas called North, especially North Shore. So I was the target of the heroin. The heroin didn't get to me, but it was.
What do you mean the heroin didn't get to you? How do you target
another crack with the methamphetamine?
All these areas with drugs hoping to get to you. What is this story?
So they didn't know who I was, but they were targeting me. And so when I got to London, they targeted me by stealing a car, stealing £100,000 and the movie rights as well.
What movie rights?
And
what movie rights
didn't allow me access to publish any books or sell any books in any shops or through any chains, or to have a literary agent.
If your books were banned, it's probably because of the absurd claims you make in them.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. And
but they can be obtained through Amazon.com.
Yeah, they've also...
apart from The Hidden King, because that told a different story.
The World of Truth.net.
World of Truth?
WorldofTruth.net.
Yes.
It's now a defunct website.
WorldofTruth.net.
The World of Truth.
The World
You
of
took all
Truth.
your
Is
old
that one
videos
word
down off there,
online?
didn't you?
Yeah. That World of Truth.
worldofTruth.net.
Because they were
Yeah. So
of you explaining about Francisco Manuel being the real king, apparently.
Yeah,
You took them all down before you did just before you did the documentary of David Mahoney.
14 assassination attempts, and so there's others that I haven't really bothered to count. You know, some I've written up,
like the Killer
most
Pie.
of them I've written up just as a matter of record. But Peter Eldridge Williams QC, who's the mafia boss in New Zealand, who's Prince Philip's agent, who I exposed as the heroin trafficker and methamphetamine trafficker,
of course,
murdered Harvey and Jeanette Crew, and then accused Arthur Allen Thomas, and then got Arthur Allen Thomas off, and thus became the hero, getting Arthur Allen Thomas off for the murders that Peter Williams had done. It took 10 years, and it kept Peter Williams in the forefront of the legal media from 1970 to 1980. So I took him to, I exposed him in New Zealand at Black Matters Guide as basically the mafia boss and heroin trafficker. And
how many times can you say heroin trafficker in one video?
Tried to suppress the book. The case went on for 5 years, and then I had a flurry of murder attempts and my car being exploded. But instead of doing an explosion, which is newsworthy, they did implosion. So it was just
implosions,
huge maintenance bills. Off $800, and then it went to $1,500, and then to $8,000. You know, so they blow up your car by destroying the electronics. So it was becoming horrendously expensive to live there. And then I got a loan car just for the days, a little Honda Civic. And I took that to the High Court, drove myself there, parked it outside the High Court, went in, won the right to appeal. Came out, and the mafia boss of New Zealand, Peter Williams, was standing with a detective either side of him, another two behind him, and there's another detective on the corner of the High Court, and another one across the street. So there were 6 detectives, and a retired police officer called Winston West came round on his motor scooter and jumped on the bonnet of my car as I was getting out of the park, the roadside park.
What?
And
While you were in the car?
While I'm in the car driving, like, you know, doing 1 mile an hour, you know, trying to get out. And he ripped the wiper blade and arm right off the car, and he ripped the rear vision mirror right off the car.
Sounds like something of Terminator 2.
And
you know,
then it's a Honda Civic.
jumping on the bonnet, trying to rip off stuff.
I've had 2 Honda Civics, Greg.
Yeah, this is like a 1985 thing. It's a loan car. So you can actually sit on the bonnet and your feet can touch the ground, or they may be that far off the ground, right? So he's sitting on the bonnet, right? And he falls on the ground. He's got a helmet on, a full motorcycle suit. It's white. Falls on the ground. He waves his arms and legs up in the air, backs on the ground, like a dog wanting to get patted. And like he's injured. He's not. He definitely hasn't been. He's hit the car. I haven't hit him.
But these are the local law enforcement authorities who are attacking you.
This is law enforcement. And then 20 seconds later, an ambulance picks them up and whisks them away. But the hospital is 2 minutes drive away by ambulance. Right? So the whole thing was prearranged just as a facade, you know. And then it got so ludicrous.
Ludicrous, yeah. I can't be the only one that finds this explanation absurd, surely, this whole story.
They actually had to close down the courts. They had no court of record, so there's no record. I had 800 pages of evidence of his heroin trafficking, methamphetamine trafficking, and pedophilia, etc., and organised pedophilia.
Of course, no, you lost the case. This is just...
This is Prince Philip's agent we're talking about. And he, the judge suppressed it all. And then the case was delayed for 5 years, and I had all these attacks, including murder attempts and car being imploded. I went overseas for a year, and then the case was heard without me being notified, either by email or mail. And then the SIS moved into my house and interfered with my mail, so I didn't get any mail ever again.
Oh, of course. interfering
Greg,
with mail.
all in
It looks
all,
like
it's
it's running
really
out of steam
astonishing
here.
you're still here to do this interview with me today, frankly. I mean, I am just in awe of the history you've led, the threats upon your life, the attempts to kill you, what you've been able to unearth about the royal family, about the whole history of the British monarchy. I am stunned. I am in awe. And I cannot thank you enough for coming on for this interview today. And I look forward to many more, my friend.
Jim, you made me laugh, mate.
Yeah, cheers.
This is Jim Fetzer, your host on The Real Deal, thanking my special guest extraordinaire, Greg Hallett.
You know, he's quite an excitable chap, but yeah, he makes me laugh. Guys, I can't be the only person that finds that absurd. And I know that he's talked about many others' attempts. One of them, him trying to get out of a stadium in New Zealand, and then they managed to whisk him away from New Zealand to England or somewhere in Europe. But no, actually, what happened is that he was made bankrupt and he fled the country, and that's the simple truth. Guys, let me know what you think about his explanation. The guy jumping on the car, ripping the windscreen wiper off. I mean, that was just like Terminator 2 for me. That had me out. The car imploding, the implosion. What is it? 12 police officers coming out, and the thing is, he says, "Oh, 12 police officers are attacking my cars," and Jim Fetzer suggests, "Oh, what were they doing? Were they using hammers?" And Greg's like, "Yeah, hammers, yeah." Oh, guys, I hope you like the video. Follow M Seeker of Truth.